Good morning, everybody. This is James Farris, and this is my employee life cycle presentation. This is for the Human Resource Management course. This presentation serves as a visual representation of the life cycle of a probation and parole officer. Within this presentation, you'll find a mixture of qualitative and quantitative information, and I do hope you find it insightful and informative. So let's get started. Probation and Parole District 2 in particular, we are located in South Central Kentucky, comprised of 8 separate counties, and is part of a more extensive department in Department of Corrections that manages previously incarcerated adult supervision. District 2 serves a client population of 8,000 parolees and probationers. We employ 110 individuals, including 80 full-time officers, 10 clinicians, which are our social workers essentially, and 20 staff members. Now, the summarization is we supervise those who were in prison and have been released, and those who have been adjudicated in the court system, whether it's district court or circuit court. And we supervise a mixture of pretrial diversioners, probation, shock probation, and of course, parolees, as we just had mentioned. Now, as we move forward, we're creating a employees or an employee life cycle, and it comes in phases. We have the attraction phase, the recruitment and selection, development phase, retention, and of course, separation, whether that's voluntary or involuntary. And then I'll move my camera over. So if you're looking at this presentation, then of course you can read that for me. That it will get lengthy if we go through and talk about it all. Now, the short-term goals, I will discuss this because it's for public safety. It is essential for us to know what those short-term goals are. And this relates to the employee population, of course, addressing the salary disparities, not necessarily just within Kentucky, but we're talking about from our neighboring states. You know, an example, Tennessee, you're not privy to the paper, but Tennessee paid about $10,000 a year more than Kentucky does. And for those people living in South Central Kentucky, I mean, you could just hop over the border and get a job going there. So then what we're doing is we're driving talent away from the state of Kentucky to get employed somewhere in Tennessee. So the governor has already started taking control of that and doing incremental increases, not as much as we'd like, but it has begun. You know, then we need to do targeted recruitment. And then implement immediate training for evidence-based supervision and conflict resolution, establish mentorship programs, and pairing new officers with experienced personnel, which we do have something similar to that. You know, we have the FTO program, but it's not really structured. Increase the staff well-being initiatives. We have some more so virtual because the COVID pandemic kind of forced that a little bit, but we're looking more in gym memberships and some other incentives like decreased rates for our health insurance, and then optimize case management, standardized protocols for case management. Because currently what we do not have is a standardization in training. We have 2 different academies and both teach similar things, but I mean, depending on the region, the way we handle certain cases are, you know, vastly different. And that's unfortunate because I would not be able to come from the district that I'm in and go somewhere maybe in Eastern Kentucky, and it would be completely different in how they use verbiage. And the courts, the way they adjudicate are different. Our long-term goal is to enhance the evidence-based rehabilitation programs for the offenders, but that starts with the employee, what type of employee and the caliber of employee that we have, and then strengthen those community engagement initiatives to support that successful reintegration. Develop a sustainable workforce, align those salaries with the industry standards, you know, for interstate, intrastate, and competition, and then establish clear pathways to leadership development and opportunities. Now, speaking on that, our opportunities for advancement are kind of limited. So you go from officer to assistant supervisor to district supervisor. However, those jobs stay filled for the most part, and people retire out of there. So there's no real advancement. So what can we do to make it seem like people are getting developed? Well, you cross train them in other jobs. You give them some money so they go back to school and do something else so they can do lateral transfers and get more experience in another area so they can move forward in a different area if that's their choice. We can update our systems. Currently, we use a Kentucky offender management system. It is always crashing, and it does not coordinate with other systems that we use, which is super unfortunate because we'll use one system and then we'll have to do another system to get more data. And then we go to another system to get more data and we have to compile that. And the more times that you have to reach out, that you're opening the error percentage. And when we're talking about people's lives and adjudication and the legal aspect, we're just creating a whole lot more area where we can get things wrong. And then, of course, promoting diversity and inclusion. And that's not necessarily the DEI. What we're talking about really is ensuring that our officers understand the cultural differences, and it's not just race and religion. We're talking about socioeconomic disparities. How does the officer interact with a person who has come from nothing, or maybe they're affluent? How do we handle those certain situations, which is training that we do not get. All right, objectives and needs. Our strategic alignment, the department's overarching goals is the public safety, right? And we do that through growth, innovation, and community engagement. In our human capital, we want to focus on the compensation and the continuous training, because competition or compensation breeds that competition, right? Where we keep that talent within Kentucky. And then if we continue to train our people, then they don't feel stagnant and they want to stay because they know that there's growth. And we want to focus on those core competencies and those critical skills and problem solving on those officers. So we continue to develop those individuals so we have the best individual or best employee that we have going forward. When we talk about competencies and gaps, of course, when the competencies, we want to talk about the behavioral and emotional, the mental health aspect, effective communication, conflict resolution, and then, like we said previously, the cultural competencies. And those functional skills are those offender management databases, risk assessments, case management, the legal knowledge, from one court system to another court system, and those crisis interventions, because with this population of parolees and probationers, crisis intervention is extremely important. And then the collaboration and networks for those resources to help enable that crisis intervention. And then, of course, data management, which we previously said. Now, the gaps that we have is not just some of that knowledge, but it is the willingness to do the job. Because as it sits now, the pay is not great, right? When we talk about other industries, we go down the road and make 70,000, slinging some product on a pallet, whereas we're talking about 54,000, and you actually have a legal obligation to get things right. Inconsistent training standards, and then the absence of fitness standards. In this realm, there's a high probability doing home visits where we might run into a situation where we either may have to engage with a client on a physical aspect or, fight for our life. Now, our future needs within this realm of employment is the technological proficiencies, the evidence-based practices, strategic recruitment, and then proactive succession planning, which means planning for somebody's development so they can progress. All right, when we talk about our employer branding statement, we're talking about value proposition, the development, workplace culture, and our unique selling points. But our branding, let me move this over. At Kentucky's probation and parole system, we are committed to fostering a dynamic, inclusive, and employee-centric culture where every team member plays a vital role in shaping safe communities and transforming lives. Our mission is to provide effective supervision and rehabilitation to individuals under probation and parole, guided by evidence-based practices and a dedication to public safety. We offer a collaborative work environment that values continuous learning, professional growth, and innovation, ensuring our employees are equipped with cutting-edge tools and the support they need to succeed. Join us in making a meaningful difference where your skills, passion, and commitment to justice will be valued, developed, and celebrated. Together, we build a better future for both individuals and our communities. So that's what I propose as our employer branding statement. I think it's pretty decent, and I hope you do too. All right, so the pipeline for our officers, uh, what we are proposing right now is, strategic partnerships, getting in with the colleges, the career centers, doing some internships, getting those employee referrals out there, and then of course diversifying our efforts in multiple communities, so we can effectively recruit, strategically select, interview those people, and assess. And of course, the assessment is ongoing. Just because you're doing an assessment for an individual for a particular job doesn't mean that that assessment stops. And then that assessment continues to go once an individual has been employed, and we do those quarterly, biannually, annually, and then so on. All right, so our total package rewards, when we talk about compensation, benefits, work-life balance, and wellness, compensation, what we've proposed is the increase in pay, which we've already started on, and we're heading in the right direction, but I think it could be better. The starting pay for an officer now, which is opposed to 6, 7 months ago, which was 48, now it's 54. And then of course those fringe benefits equaling almost 11,000 annually. And the benefits, we have health insurance, medical, it's the standard package that we had. We also get 12 paid holidays, and then accrued vacation time, and then sick days each year. Now, when we talk about work-life balance, what we have started doing was doing 48 hours of work from home. You have a choice between Monday and Tuesday, or Thursday and Friday, which is awesome. That is something we want to sustain as long as we can effectively manage the efficiency of the work that's being output while that person is at home. And then wellness, what we want to create are those subsidized gym memberships, mental health resources, which we don't necessarily have at the moment, and then the promotion of the overall well-being. And then, of course, going forward, which we do have a verbal recognition program, but verbal only goes so far. What we want to institute is a performance-based bonus or structured employee recognition program, so we can maintain that motivation and that high morale, and we keep those talented individuals, for the long term. So for our development, we're talking about leadership development. We're gonna focus on those tech skills, their soft skills, which is like the communications, how they interact with people, public speaking, and evidence-based practices. And then we're going into blending learning, where it's not just the academic, but it's in person. It's a blend of both of those. Mentorship with the field training officers, which is our peer-to-peer learning, and then of course our on-the-job training, ongoing, and then the coaching program, and then the career pathing. And I want to focus just a moment on the career pathing. So as some people are fine sitting stagnant and doing a job and earning a paycheck, and then we have super high performers who want to do a great job while they're in that job, but they also want to progress. So it is important for us to identify those individuals who want to progress, and what can we do to foster that and get them steered in that direction so they can go on and be the directors of programs, or even go into the administration in the public safety cabinet in elected positions. So we have a moral obligation to these individuals, especially if they're doing a great job, to foster that and place those in those positions to be successful. All right. Performance management, we kind of touched on it just a little bit earlier. We go quarterly reviews, and then of course getting our peer feedback, annual performances, and then the reward system is going to be merit-based promotions and recognition. And we talked about promotions are not going to be something that we can do on a regular basis, but what we can do is develop them into other positions, cross-train them so they can progress somewhere else. And then for reevaluations, we're going to do those follow-ups each year, on a cyclical basis, those quarterly reviews, the annual performance, and that will continue on until they decide to move out or retire. Separations, of course, there are two different types of separations. You have voluntary and involuntary. We have a pretty good program as it sits now. All I'd like to do is refine that. For voluntary separations, the offboarding process begins with the employee submitting a formal resignation notice. Now, that's just professional courtesy. The standard is 2 weeks. For this particular job, I would like to see it a month because our we see clients on a 30-day cycle, once each 30 days. And I think 2 weeks would be doing the clients a disservice and, of course, the organization a disservice. So I would like to move the 2 week to a 30-day. And then, of course, involuntary. Uh, in those cases, we're including terminations and layoffs. The process prioritizes the legal and ethical compliance, and the legal teams ensure the proper documentation to support the separation decision, reducing the legal risk overall. To this point, I've not had any experience with negative involuntary separations, but most importantly, I want to ensure that that individual's privacy is intact and they are treated with respect and dignity through the entire process. Whether they voluntarily separate or involuntary separate. And exit interviews, when we talk about those voluntary and involuntary separations, it is imperative that we have that knowledge transfer. So if we have somebody separating, what were they doing with those clients? What are some of the key factors to help an individual stay on the right path, and what was working for that individual, what wasn't working for that? And then we get those comprehensive exit interviews. What did the individual like about the job? What do we need to do better? Why are they leaving? If it was involuntary separation, if they are going to participate in the exit interview, I mean, what was it that drove them to make whatever decision that led to an involuntary separation? And then, of course, utilizing all that data comprehensively so we can build a better program going forward for our retention. Because it's a competitive market out there. Working for the state is not high paying, and you can go somewhere else, make a lot of money. So what can we do? What are the little things that we can continue to do based off of this exit data? So that's what we want to do, is utilize that going forward. And then, of course, the implementation and monitoring timeline. So the implementation for this particular pitch, right, the attraction and recruiting, will probably take about 1 to 3 months. We have a pretty good system in doing some of those refinements, creating those policies, getting those approved through Frankfurt, and then the onboarding will refine that 4 to 5 months. Because there are some small things that we can do as far as putting in, say, an orientation week, a month, whatever it takes. And then the development, 6 to 9 months, retention 10 to 12. Performance is ongoing, and then, of course, separation is as needed. And these are just milestones. And the KPIs, when we talk about time to fill, so cost per hire, and then candidate satisfaction, these are things that we need to look at when we are measuring our effectiveness on some of these milestones. And then, of course, internal promotions, the skill enhancement, employee turnover. In one of the papers that I had written, we had a 20 to 30% employee turnover annually. We'd like to see that decrease to 10 to 15 if we can get to that point. And then our goal achievement and performance ratings. So when we take these quarterly reviews and these annual reviews, is an officer, are they making progress? Are they learning something? Are they making the same mistakes as they were before in those feedback frequencies? And then post-separation surveys. Are our post-separation surveys, are they getting worse? Are there more positive comments? Like, hey, look, it's, we are trying to determine what we need to do in the future. And then, of course, that knowledge transfer for subsequent future hires. Now, I didn't have the timeline in specific that breaks down everything. However, I will post my paper along with this presentation. So if you want to look at this presentation and the paper back to back, kind of see what I did, my planning, my timeline, you're more than welcome to do so. But thank you for your attention. I appreciate it very much, and good luck to everybody in the class.